Well, hey friends, welcome to week 3 of Acts. I don't know about you, but I am so enjoying our study and just how God is working amongst those of the early church, even though they didn't know what they were doing. Now, I in particular relate to this little topic in my own business because so many days I have no idea what I'm doing and I'm just punting and hoping God shows up with direction. And so I love the just step-by-step direction. So this week we studied Acts 3 and 4. And one of the things I noticed in these pages is the idea of interruptions. And so before we even talk about interruptions, I want to know what you do with interruptions. Now, I will confess to you, I want you to confess to the camera, by the way, to the video, but I will confess to you that I don't handle them so great when I'm head down, as my one team that I work for likes to say, head down on a project or working on something. If we took those personality tests, I am a task unstructured person, which is probably the worst kind of person to be, because task-oriented people, you can be task or people, they tend to worry about the task and getting it done, as opposed to letting the interruptions be about people. But the unstructured part is that I can get distracted very easily. So I have piles of stuff on my desk that you can't see. I've framed it out of the camera. And I tend to get distracted super easy. And so when I get an interruption, it's a big deal to me. And so I know when I worked in the business world, that was such a tough thing to be interrupted. And so I wonder how you handle interruptions. The reality is that God uses interruptions to get our attention and redirect us on his path. And so often he will use interruptions, just like he did with Peter and John this week as we're studying, to provide a ministry opportunity. And so how do we handle interruptions in our own day? And how can we set ourselves up so that we can see the interruptions all around us? So there's a story in 1 Samuel 9 that I read to do a little research on interruptions, and it's the story of Saul. Now, Saul was the first king of Israel, and before he was king, he was obviously his son, and he was working with his father in the fields, and the donkeys, tons of donkeys, got away. This was a classic interruption, and Saul was told by his father, go get the donkeys with the servant. And so Saul went on his way, followed the donkeys to get them, and in the middle of that interruption, he meets Samuel, the prophet Samuel, who tells him that God has anointed him to be the first king of Israel. Sometimes our interruptions can be those blessings, but we need to see them. So how do we set ourselves up for this? So the first thing I would say is we need to start our day in prayer. We need to commit to praying about our schedule, about our lists. If we're a list maker, I am not, so this is very free for me. But for those of you who are list makers, or even if you're not, how do we commit and pray the agenda we have for the day and give it over to God? What our plans are, what our schedule is, and just say, God, be the king of my schedule. So that is one way. Just prepare yourself by giving it to God. Now, God may not immediately say, strike that thing off your list, but he may say, there may be an interruption in there. And so change your schedule. And so just give it to God. It just takes a few minutes each morning, but say, Lord, what do you want me to do today? The second thing is we need to build margin for that, because God will use interruptions throughout our day. And if we build margin, if we build the space that we can be interrupted, we're going to be a lot happier. Those of us who are a little bit more tightly wound on our schedules. And so what we do is we just know that we're not going to try to get everything done in every minute. But maybe we build in that 15 minutes when we're transitioning from home to work. Maybe we build in that 15 minutes at lunch to just have that open time. Maybe we don't. For me, I schedule hours because I'm a freelance writer and some points. And so I need to build in some space in between my freelance jobs to know that maybe I'm not going to get it done, or maybe I'm going to start late, or I'm going to get an interruption. Whatever it is. Maybe it's even going to the grocery store. Know that if we build in some time for God to work, that God will fill that time with the things he needs us to have, whether it's time to read his word or it's time to just talk to someone about him. Build in margin. And then the last thing I think is really just keeping our eyes open. keeping our eyes open to the Spirit. And so last week we discussed really that whole idea of asking the Spirit to come in and fill us. And so this week I would just say, add to that prayer, Lord, Holy Spirit, lead me to the places you want me to be today. And then keeping our eyes open for that. Being aware that sometimes interruptions can be exactly part of God's plan. Psalm 33:10 says this. Psalm 33:10. The Lord foils the plans of the nations. He thwarts the purposes of the people. But the plans of the Lord stand firm forever. The purpose of his heart through all generations. God knows his purposes, and sometimes he uses interruptions just like he did with Peter and John. What I love about our story from this week is that they were on their way somewhere, and instead of saying, hey, we're on our way, can we just do a quick heal here so we can get there, they stayed with that man, and they received further opportunities for ministry and to get in trouble because they stayed. And so as we go about our days, can we just take time to not be in such a rush to get things done, to get places, and to really just accomplish things, and slow down long enough for God to speak and say, here's an opportunity for you to be on mission right here where you live.